Today on Isolation Nation, gotta be quiet. You don't want what happened yesterday with the dog to happen again. In the place where you gotta turn if you're thinking, man, I'm going out of my mind. Today, Canadian goalkeeper Stephanie LaBaye, she won a... Whoa! The dog is nuts. Wait, did you hear him? Today on the show, Sheldon Souray, Jordin Tootoo, two longtime NHLers with more in common than you could ever imagine. They have history, they have mental health, they have the desire to scrap. That's today on the show. And don't forget, tomorrow on the show, my old buddy, Sheldon.
You might want to take the bass out of your tone. I'm not sure you know who you're talking to here, but I've never backed down from anything, so check your facts. Oh, God, it really is amateur hour.
So you're leaving now because of what reason?
Oh, man, that was a classic of all spending television and my life in TV. The thing I'm most famous for is Chael Sonnen leaving in the middle of the show, but he and I somehow got to be buddies afterwards, and he's going to join us tomorrow. So spread the word amongst UFC fans. Chael Sonnen, maybe the best talker that I have ever met, going to join us tomorrow on the show Isolation Nation. We are here during COVID-19 because, hey, we got a mission, and that is to make you feel maybe a little bit better about yourself and your situation and about how you're feeling. And to help us do that, we welcome two really well-known names in the National Hockey League. Jordin Tootoo, joining us from Kelowna, British Columbia. How are you, Jordin?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for doing this. And Sheldon Souray, who is joining us from Las Vegas, Nevada. Good to see you, Sheldon.
Good to see you too, buddy. Thanks for having me.
So you guys, you guys ever, and I looked it up, you guys never fought, even though you both dropped your gloves a whole lot, but you never fought each other, did you?
No, our paths never crossed a lot.
Plus, cousins don't fight, right, Michael? Us cousins, we don't fight each other.
Right.
Okay, well, let's explain that. Yeah, well, let's explain that, because when we clicked, I guess about a half hour ago, you guys, I don't think were aware of the fact that you do have similar, not identical, but similar backgrounds. Tell us about that, Sheldon.
Yeah, I think we've just started talking. We don't know each other personally, but I do know Jordan's story, or a lot of it is, as it's pretty public. And I grew up on a Métis settlement in northeastern Alberta, and I don't know if Jordin really knew that. So we just talked about that a little bit, and just caught up a little bit on our stories and where we're at. Both being in recovery. I told him that it's really good for a guy like me, even though he's a little younger than me, to see him doing so well after his career and in recovery, and that's like that he's a role model for me still. And so it's an honor to be on here with him and with you, buddy. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't seen you, and it's really I mean this whole experience for me, it's weird how, like, it's a crappy time in most people's lives, right? So I'm not going to deny that, and all the people that are out of work and all of the hardship and people dying and people getting sick, but reconnecting with people in this format for me is an amazing experience. Now, Jordin, I was shocked when you said you didn't know that Sheldon had a Métis background, right?
Well, I knew that he was of Native descent, and wasn't exactly sure where he grew up and all that. And like Sheldon said, we chat a little bit here, and growing up as a young Native kid, always looking out for other Native guys that are playing in the NHL. Sheldon was right up there with good buddy of mine, Aaron Asham, Sandy McCarthy, who I looked up to, Gino Ojic. So great to connect with all you guys and reminisce and talk life.
Okay, well, you hang on. Let me get some answers out of Souray for a second, and then we'll come back and we'll chat with you, and then we'll all chat once again together. So, Sheldon, you made reference to Jordin being a role model of sorts. Why did you need a role model? Give us a little bit of background with you and addiction.
Well, I think, I didn't really understand addiction. I know when I played, drinking or drugs was not really it wasn't anything that was a concern for me. I know my dad was an alcoholic, but he had been sober for about 21 years when he passed in 2016. So I remember growing up with it, but not really seeing it during my my years of playing, my professional career. So, I didn't really have any experience with that per se. And, much like you hear about a little too often, when my career had ended, and now, I go from an environment of structure and responsibility and schedules to having all this free time on my hand, and not really knowing how to deal with that. I just started going down a slippery slope. I had an excuse. My career ended on injuries, and I felt like I had an excuse. I felt like I was a little entitled to let go a little bit, and it just got out of control for me. So I guess saying that about Jordin, he's been sober and in recovery for a long time, much like my best friend Brant Myers. And these are guys who, especially being a Native kid and from Native communities, these are guys you can look up to and really see that they have a similar path as you, but that they're excelling after their career. And for me, that's so important.
So Sheldon, how long have you been sober for?
About 2.5 years, a little over 2.5 years.
Now, are you proud of that? Like when you say that, I mean, I know the answer. Right? The answer should be, yeah, I'm damn proud of it, because if it was easy, it wouldn't be an addiction, right? No, if it wasn't one of the hardest things in the world, then no one would be an addict. Everyone would say, hey, I can give it up. You must. So are you as proud of you as those of us that know you would be?
I'm much more proud of my life and the human being I am now than I ever was in my career playing. That was something I did, and I think I let it define me a little bit. It probably gave me a false sense of ego and entitlement and a lot of things that come along with being a professional athlete. And some people can handle that, and some people can't. And recovery has taught me a lot of things, and it's just about being more authentic. Again, being a professional hockey player and being able to live that dream is I'm blessed to have had that opportunity. But recovery has given me so much more. And am I proud of it? I am proud of it. I can't tell you how surprised that I am to sit here and say that I'm in recovery and I've been sober, because I just never thought that was going to be in the cards for me. But what do I know? So yeah, I'm proud of it, and I'm thanks for having me on and being able to share a little bit of my story, because I think it's important for people to hear. I think you see that people have whatever, a career, a girlfriend, kid, whatever, a house, a car, that your life must be set, and that's just not the way it is. Not the way it is for me.
Well, you said right off the top that Jordin Tootoo was a role model for you. Why? Because first of all, you came from the same world, and I'm actually only referring to hockey at this point. Forget about the fact that you have roots that are similar, but you could relate to him and you could use him as an example for yourself to be able to say, hey, here's a guy who was in real trouble at one time. He has had alcohol, in his past. And he has dealt with it. So you look at him and say, hey, I can do that. But now people will look at you the same way. You have this unbelievable power to, without even trying, just telling your story will make a difference to someone and may get somebody to say, you know what, Sheldon Souray, I watched that guy. He wasn't ashamed, because shame is a huge factor when it comes to mental health. And I don't know if you know the power that you have.
Well, thanks for saying that. I think that it makes a difference to me, and it probably makes a difference to my kids. It makes a difference to my girlfriend and to my mom, who is, as concerned as anyone when she's seen the path that was going down. So, it's just a part of my life, and we've all done it differently, and here we are talking about it. So it's something that, I do appreciate the platform, but like I said, the most important person that had to get healthy and I had to get healthy for was me.
You, like everybody, you're experiencing a time in your life that you've never experienced before. I don't think you were alive in 1917 with the Spanish flu. If I'm wrong, correct me. But it's something that's totally new, and none of us are really prepared for, social distancing and isolation and quarantine. How are you handling it, and how in particular are you handling it with pre-existing mental health condition?
I got to tell you, it's probably been a little bit easier for me than for some people. Again, I've been lucky to have a roof over my head, and I got a swimming pool behind me. I'm allowed to leave my house and go get groceries. My oldest daughter's here with me. We got a little gym in the garage. We're doing it, and I'm not naive enough to think that other people don't have it way worse off than me. So, I'm grateful that under the circumstances, it could be different, but I get to reconnect with my family, and it's just that, this too shall pass, right? And it's a good lesson for me too to be able to live with myself and not have to go somewhere that I don't want to go.
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, let's bring Jordin back into the conversation. Jordin, you heard Sheldon say off the top of the show that you were a role model for him. Now, you, with great humility, speak all the time about wanting to be a role model for anyone, but in particular for First Nation kids who need to look at someone who has had the kind of success you had and the kind of achievement that you've had with your sobriety. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, for me personally, growing up in a very isolated community, Rankin Inlet, Nunavut. It's right along the Hudson Bay there. And at the age of 20, cracking the National Hockey League, becoming the first Inuk to lace them up was a whirlwind, to be honest. I had just recently lost my brother to suicide prior to training camp in 03, and so there was a lot of media surrounding me, and for my mental state, if hockey wasn't there, I don't think I'd still be here today, to be honest, because hockey has been my outlet my entire life, and to lose someone who was my mentor, my father figure, at the age of 19, things could have gone south for me, but I knew deep down that ultimately our goal as brothers was to hopefully one day one of us make the National Hockey League and pave the way for our Indigenous communities, pave the way for our young Native kids who think they don't have anything, and say, hey, look, if Sheldon Souray can make it, or Jordin Tootoo can make it, it doesn't matter where you come from. If you put your mind to it, if it's too easy, you're not working hard enough.
Jordin, I got a question here from, or Casey is holding up a big sign that says, let me read that. Jordin kind of sucks, but Sheldon is awesome. Casey, come on.
I paid
actually,
that.
Yeah. When Jordin joined the NHL, this one obviously is for you, Jordin, was it hard to assimilate with your teammates? I gathered that would be making reference to your background.
Absolutely. It was, I always felt like I was an outsider coming into the dressing room who, honestly, no one could relate to my life, my upbringing, where I grew up, where I came from. And so, yeah, I always felt like I was an outcast, but I knew that, being a part of a team, in a team environment, that everyone is treated equally. And that's where I felt most safe as a human being, was when I walked into the hockey arena, and to know that there are 20 guys who have my back, the coaching staff, the organization, everything else was, going to be fine. As long as I had them, I knew I was in a safe place. And, you're at the rink for 3-4 hours a day, and you have 20 hours of the rest of the day to do whatever you want. And as a 20-year-old who has gone through addiction, suicide, there's a lot of time for me to sit and think about a lot of things. But I used alcohol to help me go to bed at night. And it got to the point where 8 years into my career, it was either, that the alcohol is going to take me down, or my hockey career is going to be done.
Wow. Here's a question for you, Sheldon. The question is about shame. Did shame affect your self-worth? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Yeah. I think as any addict or alcoholic will tell you who's in recovery, the hardest part is asking for help, right? And especially, I think, for me, being conditioned to be an athlete, no one could really help you. No one could train for you. No one could, go play games for you, practice for you. So I thought when I wanted to quit, using alcohol or pills, that it was going to be easy, and it wasn't. It was harder than anything I'd ever done in my life. And that's where the shame comes in. That's where it comes to be like, how did I get myself in this situation? And now I got to ask for help. And I wasn't used to doing that. I never went into a dressing room and said, "Hey guys, I'm feeling kind of sad today. Who wants to talk with me about it?" It's not something that that ever happened. And so that's where the shame was, is that I'd gotten myself into a situation that I couldn't help myself out of. However, through recovery and through a tribe and through people you can count on, the shame's just short-lived. It's something that we make up, really. It's a real emotion. I mean, I'm not discounting that, but asking for help might be the strongest thing you ever do. Might be the single most important thing you ever do, is make a phone call to someone. And getting into recovery and doing the work and having people tell you they're proud of you, that erases the shame pretty quickly. As long as you don't go back to what you were doing, right? If you're being authentic and you just, get on a path that's healthy for you, the shame goes away. But for sure, when I had to admit that I was an addict, I wasn't doing it. I wasn't driving my Ferrari into rehab, on a winning streak.
Hey, Jordin, so I asked Sheldon this question, and this has nothing to do with you being a professional hockey player or anything to do with what you speak about when you go to speak. It has to do with COVID-19 and the fact that we are in isolation now and in quarantine and social distancing. You have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old. I'm wondering, for your mental health, has this been a challenge for you? Because it seems like half the world is struggling now with anxiety.
Yeah, there have been good days and bad days. I'm sure everyone has felt those feelings, and for me personally, it's been quite the whirlwind. Obviously being recently retired, a year. This is my second full year being home with the kids, and so that part of watching my kids grow up and now being on lockdown in the house 24/7 has been quite interesting, to be honest. Coming up with different activities every 20-30 minutes for the kids have been basically my wife has done all the indoor activities because I grew up outside. And so I constantly tell my wife, I'll take the girls outside and spend a couple hours, and we'll just go in the bush and pick up sticks and throw rocks and do that kind of stuff. And which is also healing for me. Growing up in a very isolated community, you learn how to keep yourself busy, and keeping your mental state of mind in check by just being grounded and just knowing where you came from, that, you know, I am very grateful and humbled to be healthy today, and that my girls and my wife are healthy. And now this is just a phase in our lives, in everyone's lives, that, you know, maybe it's time to check yourself in the mirror, let your self pride down, let your ego down, and ask yourself those tough questions. Ask your wife, ask your kids, ask your family members, how are you doing? You know, and as men, you know, guys who have played in professional sports, we never talked about that stuff in the dressing room, right? I never went to my teammates and said, hey, how are you? How's your home life? How are you doing? Because it was off limits. Now in my recovery, I've learned how to communicate better. I grew up in a house where nothing was said. You shut the door and you put up with it. In my recovery, in my therapy sessions, I've had to relearn how to articulate those feelings and put them to words. And it's been tough, you know, 9 years into sobriety, first couple of years, God, like it was hard. And, you know, I give a lot of credit to the people that believed in me, Mr. David Poyle, Barry Trotz, my teammates in Nashville, you know, because every guy who plays in the National Hockey League has a story. And you know, we're human beings. We make mistakes. And for me, I was fortunate enough to have the Nashville Predator organization reach out to me and say, you know, I think we need to look for some professional help for you. And like Sheldon said, it was the hardest decision to admit that I had a problem, but it was even harder for me to be vulnerable and to just walk through those doors and say, help me, you know. As a guy who was taught, as you know, growing up, to never surrender, to never back down, to never show weakness, to never show emotion. I think that was probably the first time in a long time when right before I stepped into those doors at rehab, I shedded a few tears, and I knew it was my time. It was either now or never, and it gave me 8 more years of playing in the National Hockey League. You look at guys who often say this is gonna kill my career, but if you put in the work, if you believe in yourself, if you're willing to think outside the box, trust yourself, you know, good things happen. But it takes time. It's one step at a time.
That's, I mean, both of you have expressed it just so beautifully. I mean, I'm listening to your words. My instinct is always to interrupt, to get on to the next topic, and I'm kind of hypnotized